everyone, Eloise here today for Crafty Cafe, and for today's project I'm going to be making a friend card, and I'm going to be using the Tailored Expressions Big Blooms succulent stamp along with the huge love word dies from My Favorite Things. To begin my card today, I'm going to be using my Tim Holtz stamp platform, and I've just gone ahead and swapped over the door to the other side, which is for rubber stamps, and I'm going to stamp down this large succulent image with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink into the center of a piece of Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock. This isn't completely centered, so I am going to cut it down later, but it's fine for now. Then I'm going to be using some clear embossing powder to heat emboss over this image, since when I go and watercolor this I would like it to stay a little bit more contained, and it's just sort of be a little bit easier and faster to color in. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set that embossing powder, and then I can start coloring. So you can use any watercolors here you like. I'm using my Jello Mission Gold just because this is the palette that I just first picked out, and these are really good quality watercolors. So I want to color the succulent the exact same way that that the packaging sort of suggests. So that's one of my favorite things with Tailored Expressions stamps, is when you buy them, at least the red rubber ones, they come with color inspiration on the front of the packaging. So basically that's just what I followed. So I'm using the a green color from this palette, and I'm just going over a few of the sort of like petals, I guess, with this green color. Then I'm going to heat set them or dry them a little bit fast with my heat tool, just a little bit, and then I'm going to come in with my purple and go along the bottom of each of the petals, and then I'm going to take a wet brush and sort of blend that color out into the green. And this is just following the same way that it was sort of colored on the packaging. So I basically just copied that and just sort of went from there. And I just really loved the sort of like the purple going into the green. I know that those two colors don't necessarily like blend well together. It would sort of create like a muddy color, but for this particular image it sort of worked out in my favor for it to work that way. And I think definitely also using watercolors for this definitely helps as well, because I find, at least this is one of the things I struggle with alcohol markers like Copics, is I really struggle blending like two separate colors together. So I would never probably be able to blend a purple into a green. So that's specifically why I used watercolors. I just think that they blend a lot easier together using, two completely different colors. So again, I am just repeating the same process because these petals are a little larger. I only did like a few at a time instead of doing like 8. I only did 4, and that was just so the colors didn't dry too fast and that I could easily sort of blend them out to get that nice sort of seamless blend that I was sort of going for. Even though like these two colors are completely different and they're not going to get a perfect blend, I still wanted there to not be like a harsh line between the purple and the green, just to make it look a little bit more natural, like that's the way that the succulent was grown, because obviously, you can get succulents of this sort of colouring and, they look really natural, so that's what I was sort of going for with my colouring. So I'm basically just going to finish up my colouring, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut this sort of panel down a little bit once I've cut out my word. So I left it at this size first because I wanted to go ahead and sort of line up my love word die here from MFT, and I wanted to sort of get that in the centre, and then I can sort of determine how much I can cut away. So I think I ended up just cutting off maybe like an eighth of an inch on one side, and maybe a 16th of an inch on another side. I'm not really sure the exact measurements, but I basically just wanted the succulent to look as centered in that panel as possible and sort of have the same amount of like not as much like exposed whiteness on either side of the succulent. So I sort of just tried to center that as much as possible. I don't know if that actually makes any sense, but basically I just centered it as best I could. So then I went ahead and die cut the love word out of this panel directly in the center. I did use a T-square ruler to help me with that, just to, get it completely straight, or at least as straight as I could. And then I just made sure that I did keep all of the positive pieces that came out of that die cut word, just because I am going to be using them. You could definitely use them on a separate card and not use them for this card, so you could get like two cards out of one sort of colouring. But I decided that I wanted those pieces to be sort of like inlaid inside below the shaker that I'm going to create, so that's why I decided to keep all those pieces and use it for this card. So I basically just went ahead and adhered a piece of acetate on the back side of this panel, and then I'm going around and adhering some double layer of foam tape. So I just went around those letters as best I could. Some of them I went in between, between the L and the O. I did that because I wanted there to I sort of wanted the sequins to move around those letters a little bit, and then I also put some foam tape in the middle of the O, just again to make sure the sequins moved around that. And then I also went ahead and poured some sparkling clear sequins from Pretty Pink Posh into my love shaker, but that was way too many sequins and it wasn't the way that I wanted to adhere my panel together, so I ended up taking those out eventually. But basically now I am just adhering or inlaying my love word into a blank piece of cardstock. I used a negative cutting to adhere the love word in there correctly so it would all line up once I removed the backers and lined up the whole panel on top of this sort of shaker piece. So I went ahead and added a minimal amount of sequins on top of the love word, and then took off some foam tape and adhered my panel entirely over that shaker piece. And now that creates a cute little word shaker that's sort of a little bit hidden, I guess. Then I'm using the From My Heart stamp set from My Favourite Things, and I'm just going to be white heat embossing the You Friend sentiment onto a strip of black cardstock because I want the sentiment to read Love You Friend. I just thought that was super sweet and really great for a friendship card. Then I just went ahead and adhered that down to my panel with some more foam tape, and then tied a small hemp cord bow around the end of it just to make it seem more a part of the card, I guess. And it sort of just adheres it down a bit better as well, since there was quite a large gap. Then I've just taken a piece of purple cardstock and adhered it down to the left hand side of my card base, and then I'm going to go ahead and adhere my panel directly onto the right hand side just to see that little purple shining through. I think that purple really matched well with the purple that I used on the succulent image, and so because my panel was also cut sort of in width-wise smaller, I needed a colour to go on the left-hand side there. So to completely finish off my card, I just adhered another 3 sequins just around my sentiment, and that finishes off my entire card for today. So I really hope you enjoyed my card today and hope you were inspired to create maybe a word shaker card, and thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all next time.